Even though Dragon's Rising has presented us with a whole range of different questions that we haven't had the answer to yet, I would say the one that they have dangled the most in front of us is the current state of Master Wu. As of Dragon's Rising Season 3 Part 1, he is currently within a spiritual form, and he has not moved from that form since Dragon's Rising has begun. There has been no evidence to suggest that his state has ever evolved in any way, shape or form. Or has it? Because I believe the show has definitely given us some details that alludes to the answers when it comes to Wu. So I think I have come to an idea of where he currently may be, how he's going to return to Dragon's Rising, and what the ninja need to do to actually get their master back. But let me not waste any more of your time, and let's get into the theory. Now, a fairly common consensus I've seen within the Ninjago community is that Wu is linked to the portal gate in a handful of different ways, and it mainly comes from the end of Season 2 Part 2, where you actually see Wu split off into 4 separate orbs, and he goes into 4 of the separate portal gates. And I want to get this out the way, Wu is definitely linked to the portal gates, but not for the reason that I believe. A lot of people have come to the conclusion that the portal gates are simply just vessels for Wu's memories, but I do also think that it's not just that purpose alone. So the idea that a lot of people have come to is that once all 16 of the portal gates have become active, because we know there is one in every realm, once all of them are together, Wu will come back. And to an extent, I do think that is correct. But also, it isn't. Because the thing that's bothering me is that why is it that when Wu's spirit is separated into presumably 16 pieces, it creates portal travel. It creates something to hop between the different lands when it comes to the merged realm. It doesn't make sense on its own. Because these portal gates had to have been created by Wu, because the fact is that the one that is under the Monastery of Spinjitzu was definitely not there beforehand, because the ninja acknowledge it as such. It was not there before Wu became a spirit, so Wu's spirit splitting off somehow created portal gates. Because I also think it's nothing to do with the actual merged realms in of themselves. It makes no sense that the merged realms would be able to create essentially a portal gate system between all of the different lands. There is no reason to suggest that it's simply the idea that the merge caused that. So the only other factor to do with it is Wu. So how would he have made it? Well, I honestly think it actually tracks back to the very merge itself. We know that all of the ninja did end up in separate realms or with separate objectives, and it's no mistake that it happened to Wu as well. But the thing that no one has ever considered is how is it that all the ninjas somehow managed to be in all of these separate realms, with all these separate ideas and all these separate missions to go on. It's almost like someone moved them there. And I fully believe that someone is actually Wu himself. I believe that when the merge actually became to be, I do believe when Wu ended up in that merge storm, he ended up becoming into that more spiritual form. I believe his physical body was possibly hurt or in some way rendered inoperable, but Wu still wanted to be able to help the ninja, and the first way he was going to be able to do it is to be able to move them himself. And luckily that spiritual body as well is also keeping his physical body actually alive. I believe that when Wu is in this state, his actual body is in some form of hibernation. I don't think it's simply a case of Wu's now in this form so his physical body's gone. I believe his physical body has to be somewhere, but more on that later. But I do believe that Wu in this state was able to both help the ninja and be able to keep himself in a maintained sense. But now in this spiritual form, he now is in a position where maybe he does need some further assistance, but the ninja aren't actually together anymore. They're all in separate realms, they're all in separate situations. We know there is multiple years between the merge and the events of Dragon's Rising Season 1. So Wu is basically on his own in this spiritual form, and he needs a way to be able to help the ninja eventually while also preserving himself at the exact same time. And that is where it comes down to the biggest point of all, which is the fact that even though he's in a spiritual form, he most likely still has access to his elemental powers of creation. So, using those abilities from his father, he was able to create portal gates, and he was able to use his own elemental energy, his own elemental essence, and his very life form in of itself to be able to conjure portal travel, because it's not realm hopping, but it's certainly one tier below it. And the thing is, I can even link this back to Dragon's Rising in of itself, because remember, we don't see this spiritual form of Wu until the ninja actually do get established with the portal gates. At the very minimum, the one under the Monastery of Spinjitzu is activated before we actually get to see Wu. So, I do believe there is an argument to be made that in reality, Wu was linked to those portal gates, and the fact that he is more hazy, he's more discombobulated, he's not really got his memory, is coming from the fact that parts of him is now being awakened, but the other parts simply aren't. Now, what does that mean for the future of Wu? Well, like I said, I do believe that once all the portal gates are activated across all the realms, they will be seeing the return of Wu. We know for a fact that there is one in every realm, and they seem to be about halfway done. Like I said, we have seen a fair couple portal gates up until this point. The main ones are actually being, of course, the one in Ninjago, we've seen the one in Imperium, we've seen the one in the Cloud Kingdom, we've seen one in the First Land, and we have seen one in Mysterium. That is, of course, as of Season 3 Part 1. So they have actually gotten a fair few of them down, and it feels like we're only going to see them continue to get more of them as time goes on, and then once that time does go, we will see Wu back. And once he is back, that fully completed spirit of Wu will lead the ninja to where his true body actually is, because his physical body has to be somewhere, but it's clearly somewhere where no one has actually gone. So that leads me into my theory of where Wu's body actually is. Because I believe that because he is sharing a lot of really weird similarities in his spiritual form, like how the first Spinjitzu Master did in the Grasslands, I believe Wu's body is actually in the tomb of the first Spinjitzu Master like we see in Season 5. Remember, every single place where every single one of the ninja went after the event of the merge seems almost purposeful, and it seems almost by design. And I feel like if my theory is correct, and Wu is a lot more linked to the first Spinjitzu Master in a lot of different ways in this new spiritual form, I do believe he's honestly going to take on the same path as the first Spinjitzu Master and end up in the same resting spot that he once was. That is a very much a long stretch though. I would like to know what you think of that. But story aside as to how I think he will return, do I think this is what they're going to do? Yes. I do think they're going to have every single portal get activated, and then Wu will make his glorious return to the show of Ninjago. And like I said, I do think it's a cool idea to have him in the tomb of the first Spinjitzu Master, and if my evidence is backing me up, I do think there's a good chance he could be somewhere like that. When do I think this will happen? Honestly, I don't know. It seems to be that we get another portal gate a couple of times every single season. It seems to be that we do get a handful every time, and at current pace, it's probably going to be more along the line of Season 5 of Dragon's Rising. I don't exactly think we're going to get Wu anytime soon, because I honestly think to an extent they don't want him in the story yet, but at the same time, I do think it's inevitable that he will make a return in some way. So I do think around the Season 5 mark is honestly a safe bet to say. But overall, I do think I have a relatively good theory as it comes to the state of Wu, because I just simply don't like the idea that the portal gates just seemingly appeared and Wu is just connected to them in no way, shape or form. I do believe it's quite sound to say that Wu created the portal gates as a way to help the ninja and as a way to store himself until the right time, and his powers of creation is the reason as to why those portal gates are able to be used. But let me know what you think of that theory, and because honestly, I would love to know what you think of it. Also, let me know what you think of the idea of Wu actually being rested within the tomb of the first Spinjitzu Master. Remember, we haven't seen that tomb since Season 5, and I do think it would be a cool way to reintroduce it back into the show, maybe even show some of the newer ninja team some Ninjago history while we're at it. I do think it's a nice idea, and I do think it would make a lot of sense, especially if, like I said, my theory is to be believed, and Wu's spiritual form is very similar in vein to the Grasslands version of the first Spinjitzu Master. But yeah, again, just let me know what you think of it. But that is about it for today, you guys. And thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay, bye!